taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Nissan Frontier. This is going to be a walkthrough showing you everything that you need to know. First thing is that the steering wheel inside of the ride might be heated depending on the trim level that you're in. And you can toggle it on just above the shifter there. So there's a button with 2 individual levels. Steering wheel is also going to be manual telescoping. So just down by your left knee, there's a release. You can drop down in order to go in, out, up, and down to find that perfect position for you. Once you find it, you're going to click it in order to lock it back into place. And there are so many different buttons and so many things you need to know. So along the left-hand side, you've got your blinkers. You can also flip into a few different light modes. So the mode on the very top there, so the one I normally would recommend you stay in the majority of the time is going to be your auto mode. There's a downside of the auto mode though, and that's that you can't lock your high beams out. You can flash them out, but in order to permanently lock your high beams out, you have to go into your headlamp mode, so the very bottom. You're then going to push away in order to permanently lock your high beams out, pull towards you to turn them off. But regardless of the mode that you're in, you can always flash them out. It's just that in the auto mode, you can't permanently lock your high beams out. There's also the flexibility of using the switch along the top there in order to turn on your fog lamps. Stick along the right-hand side is going to be for your wipers. So up once in order to do a single wipe, and then down gives you some variable speeds. One level down will then give you the flexibility of using the other rocker in order to say how fast or slow that rain is hitting the windshield. You can pull towards you to get that front wiper fluid going as well. And so many different buttons. So the one along the right-hand side here, these are going to be for adaptive cruise control or even technically regular cruise. One thing about the cruise control system though is that you can only use 2-wheel drive in order to be able to utilize it. So down by your right knee, there's a selector switch. So if you're in the 4x4 model, you'd have the flexibility of moving between 2-wheel drive, 4 high, or 4 low. Unfortunately, the cruise control system, both the regular and adaptive, only work in my experience so far with 2-wheel drive. But using the system is straightforward. So you toggle it on this way, and you can see there that there's now a message that's popped up. You could then set your speed by pushing down. You could then increase or decrease 1 kilometer, 1 mile per hour by pushing up and down this way, or push and hold up in order to jump up 5 kilometers or 5 miles per hour at a time. You could then cancel your speed. You could hit the brake to cancel your speed, and then you'd push up to resume your previously set speed. And then there's also a distance indicator. So there are 3 unique levels. So it's how close or far are you away from the vehicle that's in front of you. I want you to think of that almost like a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi type of a rule for that distance. So it's essentially a gap adjustment. You've also got the flexibility of going into a regular cruise. So the default is going to be adaptive, but with the cruise control system off, if you push and hold the button instead, that's going to turn you into a traditional cruise control. So the difference is that the adaptive cruise is a set it and forget it cruise. So let's say if you set it at 100 kilometers an hour on the highway, car in front of you slows down, your truck will slow down. If they change lanes, if you change lanes, pick up speed, it's going to pick you back up to your previously set speed. It's got stop and go capability for a few seconds as well. But with the traditional cruise, like what we're looking at here instead, if you set it at 100 kilometers an hour on the highway and the car in front of you slows down, yours will not brake. So you just have to make sure you're paying attention if you opt for the traditional cruise instead. But if you want a little video demonstration showing you how the cruise control system actually works, check down in the description of this video for a walkthrough. You've got a series of buttons along the left side of the steering wheel, so you can change between all of your sources. So whether it's AM, FM, Sirius XM, Bluetooth, etc., you can move between your sources here. You could then hit the enter button in the middle if you wanted to confirm choices. If you ever get messages in the cluster, you can push up that way. You can cycle between a series of other pages here. There's a volume rocker. There's a voice command prompt where you'd be able to do things like change stations. You can navigate using your voice, and there are so many other things that you can do. So one thing I'd actually recommend is that when you get your vehicle, jump through here and see the different options, because there are, like I said, a ton of different options and a lot of different things that you can do using your voice. But making phone calls, changing stations and things like that, just kind of scratching the surface. Then you can also answer or hang up on a phone call this way. There's an available tow mode inside of the ride. Obviously, if you're towing, if you're not, no worries. You can increase or decrease the brightness of the cluster screen this way. There's a general trip reset that you can do as well. So there are different trip counters. You could then push and hold in order to be able to reset that counter. All of the different beepings that you get, so all of those safety settings, you could just do a general turn off if you'd like to. There's the flexibility of toggling on or toggling off all of the different power points inside of the ride. Your cargo lamp, so if you want that bed lighting to come on, yay or nay. There's downhill control. And one of the benefits there is that unlike at cruise control where it sets it at a higher speed, this one lets you set the cruise at a lower speed so you could focus on driving instead. There's your traction control, so you can toggle that one off, yay, nay. And then there's also your rear locking differential. In order for the rear locking differential to be turned on though, you do have to be in your 4-low setting. And then moving into the steering wheel itself. So let's hop into the actual cluster screen. And there are so many things. So you've got your gauges, which I love. So you've got your traditional gauges. So your tachometer off to the left-hand side, speedometer off to the right, with your current engine temperature along the bottom side there. You've got whether or not that lane keeping system is turned on and other safety systems with your current fuel gauge. So your fuel gauge along the top there, along with on the bottom right-hand side. Speed sign recognition's there. There's the outside temperature, your off-road status, which gear you're in, whether it's park, reverse, neutral, drive, etc. In the off-road mode, so the page that we're in right now, you can also see what's going on. So as of right now, we're in 4x2. If you move the switch down by your right knee, that can switch you into 4x4 high, or moving in and pushing can transfer you into 4-wheel drive low. So 4-wheel drive low is where you're going to want to be. Ideally, if you're pulling a boat out of water, if you're heavy towing, things like that. But outside of that, you're going to want to be in either 2 high or 4 high the majority of the time. When you're in 4 low, you can also turn on your rear locking differential as well. And then switching out, you do have to be in neutral in order to be able to switch into 4 low and then switching out of it. But once you're in 4 high, 4x4, 4x2, you can switch that out easily, and you can switch it out as you're driving as well if you'd like to. But it's straightforward using those switches. There's also a manual mode. So when you're in drive, if you move the shifter to the left, you could then use the shifter in order to move up and down and jump in between different gears. So there's a lot of benefits to doing that, but if you want to walk through on how it's done, it's on paddle shifters, but paddle shifters and the manual hand shifter, the principles, work the exact same. So you can find a walkthrough down in the description of this video. And then there are a series of pages, as I mentioned, by going left or right here. So you'll notice that I'm jumping in between screens by going this way, and then you can also move up and down here. So there are different auxiliary gauges that are available. So transmission temperature, battery, oil temp, things like that. Different options for driving, so you can see how far you've currently driven. If you wanted to reset, you're just going to push and hold the enter button there, and that's going to reset you, and that's going to reset it and bring you back to 0. You can move across to your current fuel economy, and that's going to be the average. It's not the greatest right now, just because I'm sitting here doing an explainer video. Your current audio source, so whether that's AM, FM, Sirius XM, etc. Again, hitting that source button to change between those sources. Moving across into a compass view, so you can see which direction you're facing. And then one cool thing is that if you've got an active route going, it's not full map and cluster, but you do have the flexibility of getting into turn-by-turn directions. So it's, like I said, not full map and cluster, which I would like to see, but you can at least see which direction you need to take that way instead, which is kind of nice. When you cancel the route out, it just brings you back into your compass view. Your sign, whether or not that one shows up, yay or nay. Moving across brings you into different driving aids. So you've got your blind spot system, so that lets you know if somebody's entered the blind spot on either side, and then also your lane keeping aid as well. So you can toggle all of these settings off if you want to. There's your tire pressure, and then the auto start stop button there as well, into a boatload of different settings. So let's navigate through the settings. So you've got your lane departure warning. So if you start to veer over into a lane, you'll notice that that changes color, and then you'll get a little bit of a steering wheel vibration, but you can turn that departure system off if you want to. So if that one drives you nuts. It's the same thing with all of these other systems, like the blind spot warning. Do you even want to get that one, yay or nay? Emergency braking. So if you're going to potentially be in a collision, do you want the vehicle to automatically brake for you? If you're going to back up and the vehicle recognizes a potential collision, it can brake for you that way as well. Your speed limit sign, do you want that showing up? Driver attention warning. So if you start to veer over too many times without signaling, eventually it's going to tell you that you should probably take a break. And then there are different options for parking aids. Do you want those sensors on, yay or nay? And then what volume do you want them to be at? And then the range. So how far away from the obstacle before it starts beeping at you for the reverse park sensing system. Basic meter settings are available there too. So on the home screen, your home icon, so that initial one, what do you want showing up? I'm personally a bigger fan of having the off-road status, but you could have your speed show up if you want it digitally instead of the analog speed there instead. That one's going to come down to a matter of preference. There's an eco drive report when you turn the truck off. And then do you want to get a little welcome effect when you start up? Rear door alert, with that one turned on, if you have the second door opened up and you turn the vehicle off, it's going to let you know to check the back seat. So you can get an alert and a horn honk, or nothing. You can adjust some things for your lighting, so welcome lighting when you approach the vehicle. Light off delay when you go to lock the vehicle. Do the lamps just turn off, or do they stay on for up to 3 minutes instead? Your turn indicator, so do you want to have, oh, there we go. So without pushing down, you get three indicators there instead. With locking, let's see, when do you want to automatically unlock the doors? Do you never want it to automatically unlock when you actually turn the truck off, or when you shift into park? With your wipers, do you want it to be speed dependent so they can go faster as you speed up? Different alerts. Do you want to get navigation alerts when you're coming up to upcoming turns? Maintenance information. So if you're doing work yourself and let's say you're changing out your oil, air filter, things like that, you've got the flexibility of resetting all of this information yourself. Measurement units. So do you want to be in kilometers, liters per 100, miles per gallon, etc.? For your tire pressure, do you want to be in PSI, kPa, etc.? And then you've got your temperature. Do you want to be in Celsius or Fahrenheit? So you can see that changing up along the very top there, whether you go one way or the other. Language, do you want to be in either English, French, or Spanish? And then you can do a factory reset specifically on the cluster screen settings. I know that's a lot of information, but that's everything you need to know about the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Nissan Frontier.